Good morning, Tasmania and Australia. All right, straight off the bat, I want to acknowledge that I was a bit emotional yesterday when I done that Snapchat post. But yeah, again, it comes back to me wanting to use my life experiences to rectify the things that I've done in a negative and bad light and bad way. And yeah, using everything that's happened as a way to teach other people, especially younger people, that when you're not in touch with reality, whether you cause that or not, you've got to understand that your emotions and your feelings are validated because they're yours. So, I want to touch on some things today, and I'm not going to be finger pointing, name shaming, or blaming anyone. It's just the truth. It's just what happened. So people can take it how they want to take it, but I'm not talking shit. I'm not telling lies about anyone. It's just the truth. So yeah, basically the reason that I was unaware of my father's birth date and the day that my father actually passed away, it's as much as it's not simple, it's quite simple for me to answer it because I was the one that had my feelings, my grieving process and stages that I was going through after he passed away, stripped from me, in the sense that the people around me they didn't have the same feelings and hurt and heartbreak that I did once my father died. So of course it was hard for them to understand why I was so grief stricken, why I was so upset, why I couldn't go to school, why I was just constantly crying and crying and crying as a 9-10-year-old boy. So yeah, when my father passed away, it was obviously the most challenging thing I'd ever been through as a young boy under 10 years old. I was in such a state of shock, even though I knew it was going to happen, because as I spoke on in earlier videos, I'd been going to a child forensic mental health facility since I was 6 or 7 years old. I'd been taking days off school for years to go and watch my father get chemotherapy through what they call a viewing panel, a viewing station for family, friends, siblings, stuff like that. I'm not sure if they still do that, but for me it was, they probably shouldn't have been taking me there because it wasn't helping. Watching my father go into a room, oh, I love you, boy, I'll be out in an hour or two, whatever, only for him to come out and it was like they'd drugged him up, like they'd given him hard drugs that made him slow and his speech would be different, and because chemotherapy is a powerful thing to have done to you. And yeah, watching that and being able to talk through this monitor and stuff while he's laying there having chemotherapy, although they believed or thought that it was actually helping me, along with the mental health facility for children talking about loss and family and all these sorts of things, it clearly did not help. On top of the things that took place after he died, it was just in totality, it got so much for me that when he did pass away, even though I'd seen him countless times, 3, 4, 5 times, we'd be at home a lot, just me and him, and he'd get so sick that he would have to call my auntie or call an ambulance, and they would have to come and take him because he genuinely obviously believed he needed to go to hospital because he could have died in a house with his young son there. Although I'd seen all these things, as a boy that age, you don't understand that death is instant and there's no going back. You don't understand that. You know it. Obviously, if someone dies, your animal dies, you see a fish die, whatever. You understand death in the sense that you know what it means. But until someone so close to you is taken away from you, you can't comprehend how it's going to feel or what it's going to be like. Now, this ain't, right, what are we at, 4.5 minutes? This ain't going longer than 10 minutes because I want it to be short and sharp, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want anyone to think this is a personal attack, because it is not. But yeah, when you are that age and the one person in your life that loves you unconditionally and has sacrificed the last 7.5, 8 years of their life to be your constant role model, your constant idol, your constant support, the one person that you can count on day in, day out, taking you to school, feeding you, educating you, disciplining you, teaching you everything that you need to know and learn in this world, is taken from you in the blink of an eye. Like, I know I said it was a slow process, but death is not a slow process, it's instant. And for me personally, once my father died, every household that I ended up in the next 12 to 18 months, there was no, how do I say this without being insensitive? No one had any idea how I felt or what I was going through. So it's obviously really hard for anyone to help me or help me cope or deal with my grief and my emotions and my heartbreak. Now, by the time I'd ended up in my mother's care, I was already struggling to deal with my grief because, as I said, people can't just click their fingers and feel what you feel, know what you think, and be as crushed as you are by something. So, yeah, it's hard. And by the time I ended up in my mother's care, I hadn't been able to grieve properly. I hadn't been able to talk about my father's passing properly. And I 100% hadn't processed the emotions that come with it all happening. So to then end up in a household where there was 5 other children, my siblings, 2 adults that I'd never really met, but my little brother and sister's father, I'd never met him. My mother I'd seen once in 7.5 years. Going from my auntie and uncle's household and my cousin's household to my mother's and stepfather's household, although they were 2 very different households, both of their understandings of my grief and what I was going through, given my father had just died, may as well have been identical, because I was really struggling. I was really struggling, and I'm 10 years old. So, of course, if that's not addressed and looked at seriously, like if I'm not given the help that I need and not taught to grieve and release emotions and cry and all these things, of course you're going to suppress anger, you're going to suppress hatred, you're going to suppress your regret for a lot of things that have happened because you can't talk about it. And this is just one example that I want to give, and it's a severe one because it was pretty much the first beating that I copped from my mother. I was at my mother's household, and my father hadn't been dead 6 months, and I won't say who, but one of my brothers decided that while I was sitting in the backyard crying about what had happened, and that I'd ended up in this household with all these kids that I didn't know, and their way of life was much different to my way of life, how I'd grown up and what I'd learned and what I'd seen and all these things, he decided to stick his head out of a dog hatch in the back door of the house and say, "Oh, what are you crying for? Oh, I know, sucked in, your dad's dead." And as I said, I had to suppress all these emotions of anger and rage and heartbreak and whatnot. But when that was said to me, I obviously snapped, and I got up and I ran inside and found him, and I hate to say it, but I was trying to suffocate him with like a doona beanbag thing, like that you lay on, and you can sort of put it around you like a doona while you lay on it. But long story short, I was the one that got flogged for that. My mother flogged me for that, choked me for that, screamed in my face for that, because my sibling decided to say, "Sucked in, your dad's dead, that's why you're crying." That's one example. Like, as I said, I was not encouraged, let alone allowed. I was not allowed, let alone encouraged, to talk about my father's death, what it had done to me and how much it had affected me. But yet, my sibling could tell me, "Sucked in, your dad's dead." And if I did anything about it, I was the one getting flogged, choked, slapped, dragged out of the room and screamed at and told to grow up and wake up to yourself. He's not coming back, all these sorts of things. So, as a parent now, I can categorically sit here and swear on my life that I have never said something like that to my daughter, and I never would. And anyone that did, I would be... because that's hurtful. to a child. You can't say those things. And if someone does say those things, they should be the ones held accountable. They should be the ones that get flogged. And here's the thing. I know I get heightened when I talk about family, and I cannot help that. I'm doing my best to work on it. But here's the thing. As an adult, if you're an adult watching this, you have to acknowledge that that's fucked. Like, if your son is grieving from the loss of his father, don't you think you should be supporting him, encouraging him to, seek help and talk about what's happened, or encouraging me to get help by trying to, whatever. But no, that wasn't the case. And so, as I said, that's one example. A bad one, but it's one of the first ones after I ended up in my mother's care, where my father's death was deliberately used against me and put in my face as a way to make me feel weak, as a way to make me feel like it didn't matter and I needed to just grow up and get over it as quick as I could. So, for me, being able to reflect on these things now, is it any wonder that even after one full year of him dying, my father, I never really understood that. I didn't even know the day that he died. I didn't know his birthday. And within that first year, my ability to grieve, think about my father, reflect on what it had done to me emotionally and psychologically, was stripped from me by all the people that were in my life after he died, and their inability to help me grieve and cope and move forward with my new life now without him. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. So of course I was upset yesterday when, I was having a great day and everything was going amazing and so many good things happened yesterday. And I felt great. I was on top of the world. Only to come home and realise the moment I opened social media and get on Facebook that it was 27 years to the day that my father died, and I was getting around here like I didn't care, didn't know, just was oblivious to the fact that 27 years ago to the day, yesterday, was when my life would change forever. When I would be exposed to things and put in households and places where, I was not loved and cared for in a way that my father did. So, unfortunately, my life fucking spiraled out of control over the next 27 years. We'll say 21 because, I've been out of jail 6 years and haven't been charged with a crime. I'm now completely drug-free. But yeah, this last 6 years has been some of the hardest years of my life. And it's just something that, yeah. Oh, look here, Richo, we're at 13 minutes now. Right, 14 minutes and we'll call it. Yeah, it's just something that I wanted to touch on. Kids' feelings and emotions are something not to be played with, because those children become young adolescents, and then they become young adults, and then they become adults who get to make their own decisions based off their own feelings, thoughts and emotions. And you've only got to reflect on the life I lived and listen to the stories I just told. It's not rocket science. If children aren't raised the right way, they can go down the wrong path. If grief and heartache and things like that aren't addressed early on, children will make poor decisions to cope with their emotions. It's it's a hard one, but bang, there we go, I said it. Have a good day, everyone, and thank you so much for all the love and support in relation to the fight. Really looking forward to getting these posters out today, and yeah, look forward to seeing you all there, November 15th. Let's go!